All right, everybody, we are recording. I am excited to talk through our master template terminology and number sheet lecture with you. I am going to share my screen right now so we can view our master template, go over that first. So, purpose of this lecture is to give you guys an understanding of how we use our master templates, our terminology, our number sheets, then also give you an understanding of why we have these things in place on our staff. And let's start with the why first. Is we are very much, in every sense of the word, a staff. We are not individual strength coaches that are off on our own islands doing our own thing. We are a unified staff. And as you'll learn as you go throughout your internship, that is a part of our brand, is we need to be a unified group. And having common templates like our master sheet and our terminology helps us be more unified. And what it does for us is allows us to be flexible, allows us to have a life outside of the weight room. For some reason, if I were to get sick or go on vacation or traveling with a team, any one of our strength coaches would be able to pick up my master template, understand the terminology, the exercise that I have chosen, the how to read the master template and be able to implement that program. So it allows us to have a ton of flexibility. It also helps us with our young strength coaches like you all. You don't have to learn 8 different systems. You don't have to learn how I do something and the way Coach D does something. It is all very similar. We are all under the same umbrella. And when it comes down to your programming project, you're going to be using the same system. It allows us to get through a programming project much more efficiently. So if you're using our template, you're using our terminology, we're able to look at your program, have very specific questions, and not so much come back to you with 100 questions about, I really don't know what this exercise is. You're using this terminology. We don't use that. What are you talking about? It just makes your programming project go a heck of a lot smoother. So let's get into the how next. So what you're looking at right now is our master template, and we will send this to you guys. What we're looking at now is the 3-day template. We also have a 5-day template. And then there's a 3-day example, just so you guys have an understand how it should look, or very similar to this when you actually fill it out. And then this last tab on here, you don't have to pay attention to. It's just an example of a speed, agility, conditioning template. We're not going to go over that now. But going back to day 3, this is what you'll use for your programming project. So what we have here is up top, day 1, day 2, day 3, you fill out all of this. And then you come back down and you start plugging in whatever exercises you put in the shaded area down on the side. As you see, we go in 4-week cycles. So for your programming project, it's going to be a 12-week cycle. So you would have weeks 1 through 4, and then all you would do for that next cycle is make a copy, move it right there. And then you would put weeks 5, 6, 7, 8 here, and then obviously make another one going through week 12. I'm going to delete this right now, but going back to the 3-day template, this is what you'll use for your programming project. What we don't want you to do is make a lot of adjustments to this document. So when we email this to you, when we send this to you, you'll have this blank version, but then you'll want to save it onto your laptop so that you can do your programming project from there. And as I'm talking about making adjustments, what I don't want you to do is make adjustments to rows. That's not going to help you out, and it's not going to help us be efficient. All these things that are up top, mobility warm-up, ab, shoulder prehab, triple warm-up, leave those where they are. Do not delete those. Do not move those around. What you can do in terms of adjustment is you can add rows here. So if you need to add rows because you're running out of space, you can definitely do that. One thing I would always add rows to is the accessory circuit block. So right now, I think there are 11. Yep, we got 11 rows right here. If I end up having 13 accessory movements that I need to plug in here, I can add, insert rows. I can add 2 extra rows, and now I have enough space. So not making adjustments to anything up top, not making adjustments to the width of the rows, not making adjustments to the height. I'm sorry, the width of the columns, not making adjustments to the height of the rows, but you can add rows if you need to. Next thing I wanted to talk through with you is the print preview should be set. So when you go to print your document, or when we go to print your programming project, everything should show up in the screen and you don't have to make any adjustments. So I can see the entire 4-week cycle there. Up top where you see the header, you're going to put the team that you are programming for, and then right next to that, your name. Don't make any adjustments to UK Athletics, and then you have off season there. So to make those adjustments, go to page setup, go to header up here, and then I would change this, custom header, change this to whatever I needed, wrestling, and then in the parentheses, putting down Spurlock. When I actually use this template to program for my teams, let's take volleyball, for example, I'm not going to put my name in there, but I will put volleyball, and then whether it's off season, the summer, the end season, whatever it might be. But for your programming project, wrestling is going to be where the team is. Put your name next to it because you all are doing the same team. We want to make sure that when we print these out to go over them with you, we know who's we're looking at, and that will just help us be more efficient. But like I said, the print preview is set. Do not need to make any adjustments there, but we have had issues in the past where people have Macs, and as they're using Excel and a MacBook, things don't always come out as clear and concise as they are as I'm working on my PC. So if you do have problems with that, let us know. So let's go through the 3-day. Actually, let's take a look at the 5-day real quick. So the 5-day is almost identical, still a 4-week cycle, but like I said, you got 5 days there. And I'll give you an example of how I use both of these templates. So when volleyball is in season, we only lift twice a week. So even though I have 3 days here that I can choose from, I'm only using 2 of these columns. So what I'll typically do is we usually lift Tuesday, Thursday, let's say, instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm changing this to Tuesday, Thursday. This one is blank, or we do have some student athletes that redshirt and will do an extra lift with me. So I might make that one an extra, or if I know they're going to lift on Saturday, I might make it Saturday. But for the rest of the team, I know they're only 2 days a week. So I just put the 2 days that they're going to lift, their corresponding dates, and then go from there. Just go back, make sure these are all set. The 5-day example is during the summer, volleyball was with me. We are going 4 days a week. So even though this is a 5-day template, I'm only going to be using 4 of these blocks. So I will leave it just like it is here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's off, Thursday, Friday. But going to the 3-day example, this is how, or it should look very similar to this when you fill out your programming project. And it looks very similar to this when we, as strength coaches, use this. So going through it section by section, you see up here, first thing up here is we write down what pre-lift mobility our team is going to do that day. So how you write this out is kind of up to you. You just want to make sure that you get the information in there that you need. So, and when I put this example together, it is not meant to be a comprehensive, good program. I just plugged in some exercises so you guys can understand how we actually use this template. So we're looking at mobility. The mobility movements I plugged in there for day 1 are sleeper stretch, cat to camel, and overhead smash. You can even see up here, I wrote down the times for each one. So it says sleeper stretch, 30 seconds each side, and then cat to camel, 1 minute, overhead smash, 1 minute. On this next day, I did a little bit different. I tried to squeeze everything into that row. So the mobility is external hip, 1 minute, hip drops 1 minute, ankle rocks 30 seconds each side. And then you can even see over here as a third example, there's duck walk, squat to stand, and inchworms. Each one of them is just going to be 1 minute, no reason to be redundant. So I just put 1 minute for each movement. So that's a general idea of how you will write into mobility, but there will be another lecture towards the end of the summer when you start finishing up your programming project, where we will tell you exactly how to choose those movements and how to plug those in. Next thing we have is warm up. One thing you'll find out about our program is that our student athletes in the weight room, everybody goes through the same general weight room warm up. So that's why that's there. Warm up is there, everybody does the same thing. Now during the academic year, and this is different than the summer, during the academic year, we do core activation or glute activation. And this is where this ab section comes in. So I plugged in some ab exercises for the core activation. After that, we do shoulder prehab. I plugged in movements for shoulder prehab, YCs, W's, and L's, Cuban press, band pull aparts. And then after that, we have the triple warm up. Like I mentioned before, we'll have a lecture that goes all over all of these parts of the program. But to give you a general idea, the triple warm up changes every day. It's different from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. It is meant to be 3 movements that are going to be more specific to the lift that the student athletes are doing that day to get them even more warmed up for that workout. So as you can see, I wrote down RDL, squat jumps, push-ups for this day 1, and they're doing 2 sets of 6 on each one of those movements. As we get past all the prep work before the workout actually starts, before they actually have a barbell in their hand, the next part is the actual workout. No sets and reps. We don't plug any sets and reps here, but it's more of our exercise selection. So for this day 1, you can see that the first thing they're going to do is power clean. After that, they have a couplet. They're doing push press and pull-ups. After that, it's a circuit, reverse lunge, physio ball leg curls, and front raise. And then the 4th thing they have is side planks and seated knee ends. So once you figure out what movements you're going to do, you plug them into the meaty part here of the document, and then you start working your way down. So what we do now is we go to this left column here. So everything down here, you start plugging in all the movements that you chose. So looking at that, I'm just going through day 1. First thing we have is power clean. I put power clean in the Olympic explosive section. And then we have push press. So we don't have a lower body strength movement that day 1, but I put push press under the upper body strength movement. We coupled pull-ups with that. So pull-ups is in the accessory movements. And then the circuit, like we talked about, was reverse lunge, physio ball leg curl, and front raise. Then finishing at the bottom section is our abs and core, which, like we said, was side planks and seated knee ends. Now let's talk a little bit about how I plug that in. So to give you an idea of how I do this, I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, but this helps me stay organized, is when I do write my movements up here. If I couple a movement with a strength movement, meaning a movement that has a percentage associated with it, like push press, I put pull up directly underneath it, as opposed to a circuit where I did not put a percentage with reverse lunge, physio ball leg curl, or front raise. I just wrote it out all in the same row. So when I'm looking at this, it's telling me, okay, push press, I know is going to be in the upper body strength column. And you can see that I put sets and reps with push press, but pull-ups is part of the accessory to that movement. So I put it down in the accessory section. So all that tells me when I'm going through this program is that I know to look for pull-up in the accessory part. Now, I wrote everything in that 3rd circuit out in a straight line. That tells me that everything's going to be in order in the accessory circuit section. Easy enough there. Talking through sets and reps. So still sticking with this day 1 example. Let's even talk about how we even stay more organized. So I wrote power clean over here, but when I go to the corresponding day and date, sometimes, especially writing out these Olympic lifting complex, writing out hang clean plus push jerk can take up a lot of space. So it's okay to do some abbreviations. So abbreviation for power clean, PCL, I would be able to look at that even if it was Coach Mack's program and be like, yep, we got power clean that day. Now, how we write out our sets reps and percentages is exactly what I have here. So for power clean, they are doing one set of 4 reps at 45%, one set of 4 reps at 55%, and then 3 sets of 4 reps at 65% plus. So we go sets times reps. Some people go reps times sets, but in our program, it's sets times reps. One thing to pay attention to is that we have 3 sets of 4 at 65% plus. So what that plus means is that I would want that team or those student athletes trying to bump up if they can after they get done with that first set of 65%. So that plus means ideally, as long as technique is good, if it's something like a squat that they're hitting depth, the movement standard is solid, that we want to try to bump them up. But whatever strength coach you're working with will give you the details of what they want exactly for that day or that movement. Let's talk through some more abbreviations. So like I said, sometimes the column is only so wide, the row is only so high. So we do abbreviate quite a bit when we're plugging in the movements here. So talking through some general abbreviations: power clean, PCL, hang clean push jerk, HCL plus PJ. There's hang snatch, back squat, BSQT, overhead squat, push press. I was actually able to punch that in letter for letter, so that's easy enough. Instead of bench press, I just wrote bench. So you guys can go through this and see all that. Some other abbreviations that we have that you'll see more and more as you go through our exercise menu, our video links page. We'll talk through some of those. So the first one I want to point out is reverse lunge. Reverse lunge, we just abbreviate reverse, REV, easy enough. Physio ball is another one that we always abbreviate. Instead of spelling out physio ball, which is a pretty long word, PB is how we abbreviate that. Dumbbell, DB, you guys probably know that. We have lat, so that's lat pull down. We also have lat raise, kettlebell, and then we'll talk about, I don't think I have it on here, but we have single leg abbreviated SL. We do not say one-legged, we just say single leg. We don't say one arm dumbbell bench, we say single arm dumbbell bench. So single arm, SA, single leg, SL. Talking through the sets and reps. Last one I wrote down that I didn't go over. Weighted. Weighted is another abbreviation that we use. Weighted, WT''ED. Don't spell out weighted. Do it exactly like I have here. If you do throw a weight into like a weighted twist or even like a weighted front plank, that's how you would abbreviate that. So talking through sets and reps with unilateral movements or movements that we're doing side to side, something like that. So a good example that I'm going to show you is, let's start with reverse lunge. So reverse lunge, I got the correct abbreviation. Obviously, you're going to be doing reps on your right leg, reps on your left leg. How we write that out is 6 + 6 or whatever your rep scheme is. So reverse lunge, single leg RDL going down here is 5 each leg. It's rep plus rep. That should be easy enough to understand. Even movements like weighted twist, where you're doing each side, you're doing 10 + 10 or 12 + 12, 20 + 20, whatever it is. Another example of that, that's not so much a single leg, single arm, but like I was saying with a twist, you're going side to side, is anti-rotation press. It's 8 each side. Let's talk through time-wise. So a couple different things you can do for time. Give the example of side plank, kind of knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. So you got to go one side and the other side. So we have that plus in there. I'm going 30. I just wrote down 30 seconds each side. So it'd be 30 + 30 seconds. Seconds, let's abbreviate to SEC. If you do go for a minute on something, a couple different things you can do. You can write out a minute like I have up here in the mobility, or, and I'll even change this one. I am good with you guys just abbreviating minute, MIN, and having it there. I'm just going to leave that like that so you guys can see that as well. So that's some abbreviations. One thing to understand is that our student athletes typically, and I would say about 95% of our teams never see our master template. The master template is for us as strength coaches to stay organized, and for whoever is assisting with our teams so they can understand the bigger picture of where that team's training cycle is going. There are some teams, and I could be wrong, but I do believe Coach Wood gives our throwers their master template so they know what's coming. But specifically with our volleyball team, if I were to hand them this master template, they would be like, what am I looking at? I've never seen this before. But that is a general breakdown of our templates. So like I said, this is just an example. Oh, let me say this. So we do have this notes section over here, which is very handy when we have something like a series that you maybe don't necessarily want to write out and use a ton of space down here. And I'll give you an example of possibly what you would use for the sport of wrestling. Maybe it's a forearm circuit. So if you were, let's say you wanted to finish day one with a forearm circuit, you would write forearm circuit, and maybe it's, a bunch of different movements. Maybe it's even 8 movements, and you don't necessarily want to waste a ton of time writing it out here. In the notes section, you can write out forearm circuit and then just start typing out whatever it is. Maybe you wanted to do something with a band, and then you wanted to go to whatever. It could be a bunch of different movements. You just type that out, and that will remind you of what you are referring to with the forearm circuit. And it will also help whoever is helping you out with a team. Other thing I use this note section for is to remind me of whether it's, chronic injuries that a student athlete might have, or maybe it's, sometimes I plan out an entire semester before the semester even starts. And, I might have something in my head and I put it down in the 4th cycle. And this has happened to me before, where I'll put something down. I'll finally get to that cycle 3 to 4 months later. And then I'll be thinking, I'm like, oh, I have no idea what I meant when I put down X, Y, and Z. So you're able to just write notes to yourself. But going back to our student athletes, if I know somebody on my team has a condition, maybe like sickle cell positive, I might make a note about that on each cycle, so it reminds myself and also those that are assisting me. If somebody has a chronic back injury, kind of going back to us being flexible and being able to cover for each other, I'm still going to program in RDLs for a team, but that person that has that chronic back injury might always have a modification when we do something like an RDL or a single leg RDL, something that's going to put a lot of pressure on their low back. I can make that note in that section. So if Coach D were to pick up my program, he'd be able to look at the master template and be like, oh, yes, Sarah has a chronic back injury. Instead of RDLs, Spurlock always has you do physio ball leg curls. Is that correct? He could confirm with the athletic trainer and then even the student athlete. With this, and that was a lot of information I gave you, ask questions. So if you think you're doing something, whether you're doing it right or doing it wrong, get with your point person, get with me, and then we can talk you through our master template and any questions that you have. Next thing I wanted to hit on is our terminology. Couple ways to stop sharing for a second. Couple ways to get to our terminology. So UK Athletics, we have this on our website. So if you go to menu, athletic department, strength and conditioning, Olympic strength and conditioning, this takes you to our website, which needs to be updated. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you have our exercise menu. You click on that, and you have thousands of videos, and we have spent a lot of time on this that will help you understand our terminology. So it's broken down into sections. So you have our Olympic lifts, our lower body section, upper body section, and even those different sections have different categories. Let me get out of that. So with our upper body section, you have a bench section, a press, band, pull, row, push-up, extra. So you can find what you need by visiting this website. And then once you click on a movement, it will take you to our YouTube page where you can see what that movement is if you're not familiar with it. This can help you in a lot of ways with your programming project to make sure you're using our terminology. Or if one of our strength coaches gives you the master template for the team that you're assisting with, you're looking 4 weeks down the road and you're like, ooh, I'm not sure what that movement is. You can go to this page, search it by just going Control F, search whatever you want to search. Maybe it is a landmine movement, and then all of our landmine movements will pop up. Another way, and we will send this to you as well, is we have a video links Excel document. So here it is right here. Now this is an ever-changing document, and we're even making adjustments to it currently, but kind of the same concept. So you have all of our different body parts, sections. Let's stick with upper body. So here's the upper body tab, and then you have all the categories that we just talked through. We will send you this as well, how you find movements here, Control F. The best thing to do is go to options. Instead of searching within the sheet that you're on, the tab that you're on, just search the whole document. So even though I'm on the upper body tab, I can type in landmine, find next, and then it takes me to that landmine tab and all the landmine movements. So that's how you use those two resources. They're going to be crucial for your programming project, and they're going to help you out a ton when assisting us with our teams. One thing to note is that I am a stickler for our templates, for our master templates, for our terminology. As you go through your programming project, if I'm working with you, I will definitely give you some tips on sets, reps, percentages, exercise selection, what will work, what won't work, but ultimately that's your decision. What I care the most about is that the integrity of this document and our terminology is used to the T. It's hard to do as a new strength coach into our program. So what I need you to do is ask questions. Ask questions. If something is confusing, if you're not sure if you're doing it the right way, shoot me a text, give me a call, get with your point person, and we will help you out as best as we can. Also know that this template here, the master template, has been around in our strength program longer than I have been here, and I'm going into my 15th year. So it's not 100% perfect, but it is really, really good. And about 95 of the situations that we put ourselves in with working with our teams and programming, it's going to be a great document, a great template to use. So that is that with our terminology and master template. The next thing I'm going to move on to is our number sheet. So let me pull up an example of our number sheet. So this is what our student athletes do see. So every time they come and work out with us, we print this out. So if I go to print preview, it should be set. This would be an example of what our student athletes see. They have their percentage lift, their charted lifts here. They have everything that they're going to be doing pre-workout, so mobility, their core activation, shoulder prehab, triple warm-up, and then the actual workout is down the side right here. The one thing to know about our number sheets is that they are unique to each strength coach. We all use this resource, but the way I use it might be different than how the other strength coaches use it. And what I mean by that is the formulas we use in these cells might be a little different. How we find and come up with our projected maxes might be a little different. How we find projected maxes for movements that are based off other movements. So for example, sometimes we find our front squat off our back squat number. That might be a little different amongst our strength coaches, but this document is common. We all use it. They just might look a little bit different. And we need to be able to have that autonomy with this document. Because for example, my volleyball team is probably no more than 15 athletes on a roster, and that's even a big roster for a volleyball team. Coach D has 45 baseball guys. So 45 people is a lot different than 15. So he needs to be able to make some adjustments. I need to be able to do what I needed to do to make sure that our athletes are able to have the information they need for their workouts, and we're able to get through it efficiently and effectively. First thing I want to talk about with this is our max sheet tab. So as you look at this, once again, just know that this is the way I typically get it set up, but the other strength coaches might be a little bit different. And we're going to talk through those things as we get through the summer, as we go through the summer, but this will give you a general idea of how we use it. So these names should look familiar. This is where we would put our student athletes. And what we have here is each one of the lifts that I want to chart. And once again, this is just for example purposes, but we have power clean, power snatch, Olympic lifting complex, back squat, front squat, so on and so forth. And then we have a max column, and then we have a rep column. So to give you an example here, the formula, which is going from C5, and what this one represents is essentially 100%. So it's looking at C5 here, what I have highlighted, and then it's 100%. So if I know a team's 1 rep max and power clean, I am going to just plug in their numbers here, and then it will spit out their 1 rep max here. And what we do here is you have D5. As we go into the actual workout, you'll see that even though this is hang clean, I'm still using my power clean max. This formula is coming back to that D5 cell. And then for Krim, it's coming back to D6. And then if we go all the way down to Strobus, it's D12. So it's going all the way to Strobus's D12 here. And if I change this to, let's say 175, that will change. And then his number over here should change as well. Boom. So when we do know a team or student athletes 1 rep max, that's how we get it done. Now there are plenty of lifts that we don't do 1 rep maxes on, and we'll give the example for power snatch. So power snatch, hang snatch, I'm probably not finding a 1 rep max for the volleyball team on that. It's still a movement that we do a ton of times, but we always do it submaximally. We always use a sub-maximal percentage. How about that? So the example I have down here is, let's say I know what the volleyballs, what they can do for 65%. So the formula I have here is equal sum E5 divided by 65%. So what I have here, if I know that Butler can do 65 pounds for 65%, I put in 65, and then that spits out his projected max. If he gets stronger throughout the season or a cycle, and I need to change it, and I know he can do 85% for 85 pounds for 65%, that changes his projected max there. Sometimes as you go through it, your program progresses. You're not always at that 65% number. How you change the percentage. So let's say we work up to a range for power snatch or hang snatch that's more like 80%. I can change that to 80%. Now what I'm going to do is I highlighted everything, hit Control D. Whoops, screwed up something. Highlight everything, hit Control D, and then that changes everything here. So if I know after a workout for 80% that Butler did 75 pounds, Krim did 100, so on and so forth. I change those numbers, and then their projected max changes. One thing, as you noticed, or you should have noticed, is as I changed this max number here, as that changed, this dumbbell snatch number changed as well. So we'll talk about that real quick. So dumbbell snatch, how we figure out what a projected max is for dumbbell snatch is you take the snatch number, which you see up here in the formula, which is F5, which correlates back there. And then you just divide it by 2. So it's this F5 divided by 2. Now everything else, the 5, 0, 5, times 5 is part of the round function, which just makes this a round number. And going back to the autonomy that our strength coaches have with this document is I like using the round function. I think Coach Wood uses the ceiling function, the ceiling formula. We can talk about those things, but just generally understanding the document is what we're doing now. Another example is bench press. So bench press, I'm still using the round formula. It's correlating back to P5. So P5 is right here. And then we're taking 75% of the bench and then dividing it by 2. And one thing we'll go over in another lecture is how to use our Kentucky percentage chart, where it gives you all these not formulas, but gives you how to find projected maxes on lifts that you're not going to max on from other numbers. I think the easy example is looking at a front squat. So we got Butler projected max is 217. What I have here is for front squat, we're correlating back to J5. We're taking 75%. We're saying that's his projected max for front squat. Now for front squat, I think I typically use 80% of back squat, but it's somewhere between 75% and 85%. Whatever percentage you use, you're going to be able to figure that out and tweak that as you go throughout your career as a strength coach. If I wanted to use 80% instead of 75%, I would just change this instead of 0.75, 0.8, click out of it, highlight all of these, and then Control D, and it changes the projected max there. A lot of things we're going over. That's why we're recording these, so you guys can pause, rewind it, watch it again. So that's a general breakdown of what the max sheet looks like and how it functions. Next thing I want to look at is this day one. So like I said, when I do print preview or I print this out, this is what our student athletes see. Our student athletes don't see our master template, and our student athletes do not see this max sheet either. So breakdown of what we got going on. And let's even talk about, for hang clean, for me specifically, and each strength coach might be a little bit different. Even though I have a projected max or a 1 rep max for power clean, I still use that same number for hang clean. I just have to be conscious that possibly their hang clean number might not be as heavy as a power clean number, and I adjust for that in the percentages that I use. But looking at the formulas here, I'm using the round formula, the round function. Then everything is correlating back to that max sheet, that max tab. It's going to D5 and we're at 50%. And like I said, everything from here on has to do with the round function, not so much a percentage. So you see that I'm looking at Butler's number. He's at 50% for one set of 3. So D5, just to make sure you guys understand, D5. And I always put whatever that first student athlete's number is going to be, I always put that at the top. So I always know that I'm using the correct column and cell. So we're looking at Butler's projected or his 1 rep max for power clean. And then that's why D5 is right there correlating on that max sheet. So he's still D5, we're at 60%. And then looking at the last one, we're still at D5 for 70%. Now, if you go down to my numbers here, I'm D11 at 50%, D11 at 60%, D11 at 70%. If I wanted to change these numbers, so let's say I wanted to go 55, 65, 75. Coach D has a cool thing in his master and his number sheet where when he changes these, and I think he has a drop down column that he uses, as soon as he changed these up here, it automatically changes the numbers down here. I'm not as savvy. I don't trust myself with Excel that much. So what I do is I just make the adjustments up here. Then I would change them manually to 55, 65, 75. And then just like I did on the max sheet, I highlight everything, Control D, and then the numbers should change from there. So that's how you make some adjustments. Now, let's say that I wanted to, instead of 3 sets of 3, I wanted to do 4 sets of 2. That works too. And before I get there, just so you guys understand, let me go back. got ahead of myself. So this 3 sets of 3 at 75%. If we were looking at the master template and it said 3 sets of 3 at 75% plus, that's what these columns here are for. So looking at Butler, if he did his first set of 3 at 75% and it looked good, we have this on our clipboard on the floor watching our student athletes work out. So if I'm watching Butler lift, he did his first set of 3 at 75%, 115 looks good. After he gets done, I'm going to say, Butler, 125 for your next set. And then right in this cell here, underneath the 2, he's doing his second set of 3 at 125. If that set of 125 is a little shaky, maybe I bumped him up a little bit too much, or his technique was off just a little bit, I might tell him to stay. I might tell him to bump down to 120, but whatever he does for that third set, I'm writing that in this block here. Now we'll talk about this change column in a second. And like I've been saying, everybody's a little bit different, but I'm going to give you a general idea of what we use that change column for. Now to make adjustments to the document. So let's go back to what I did say earlier. Let's say we are doing 4 sets of 2. All I got to do now is go to insert an entire column, because we don't have 3 sets. I need a 4th set or a 4th column. Then I would just put 4 right there, and then I'm good to go. So let's talk about that change column real fast, and let's do back squat as an example. So going back to the max sheet, we have back squat. And back squat is similar to the power snatch number that I was explaining earlier. So right now I have in the projected max column, I have 92%. 92%. And for us, 92% is going to be super, super close to a 3 rep max. So essentially what I have down is I know everybody's 3 rep max on this team. And I'm saying Butler did 200, Krim did 200, so on and so forth. Strobus did 255 for 3 reps. And that spits out my projected max here based off a 3 rep max. Now, let's say, and this is how, just an example of how to use that change column. And like I said, each strength coach that you're working with will tell you what they want each day from that actual workout, that specific lift. But let's say we're looking at Butler, and Butler is doing back squat. And he's doing 3 sets of 2 at 80% plus. So we know we want him to bump up. Right now we're at a sub-maximal weight. 2 reps for 80% is definitely sub-maximal. So let's say, let's even take a step back. Let's say I found this 3 rep max of his a cycle ago, 4 weeks ago. He did 200 pounds for 3 reps. That's how we found that projected max. Now we're 4 weeks later. He has continued to get strong. We're still using the same projected max, but on this day, we're doing 3 sets of 2 at 80% plus. I'm watching him lift. He hits 175. 175 looks awesome. He hits full depth. He's moving it fast. And I'm like, you know what, Butler, you're doing a great job. Let's go ahead. Let's bump up to 200. So I write 200 down in this second column. I watch him do his next set of 2, and he smokes it again. He looks awesome. He's definitely gotten stronger from the time that we did the 3 rep max. We get to the third column. I'm like, you know what? You're still looking great. Let's try 220. He hits 220. It's a good weight for him to move 2 times. What that tells me, and whatever myself, Coach D, Coach Wood, Coach Matt, whoever, whatever we tell you, you're going to write something down in this change column. For me specifically, I'm going to want to write down what I think Butler can do for 2 reps. So maybe I think, you know what, 220 looked good. It was a little bit heavy, but I do think he could get 225 for 2 reps. What that tells me is when we get done with the workout and I go back to this max sheet and I'm like, man, I have his projected max at 217, just under 220. And I just saw him do 220 for 2 reps. And I think he could even get 225. So I know I need to make adjustments to this number. So what I got a couple options. I can change this percentage. Maybe I'm going 95%, 97%, and I'm plugging in his 2-rep max, or what I think he can do for 2 reps, either 220 or 225. Or if maybe he's the only one that's smoking the weight, I just might bump this number up. Let's say if I go 210, what does that give me? It gives about 230 max, and that might be where he's at, or at least that's going to be a better number for him moving forward. So that gives you a general idea of how to use our change column in our number sheet. But that is a general breakdown for our number sheets. And one last thing I'll tell you to go up. So this just I just made one generic day for you guys so you can see it. Obviously, we have 3, 4, maybe 5 days of lifting that we'll put our student athletes through. All you have to do to make another tab is hit create copy, move to the end, and then I would change this to whether you want to call it Monday, day 2. That's up to whatever strength coach, but let's say instead of hang clean, I'm doing hang snatch that day. And then let's say the sets and reps are and percentages are exactly the same, but this is corresponding back to D5. I got to go find what snatch is. So that's F5. I make sure I'm putting in the right number for Butler. So F5, change that to F5, change that to F5, highlight it, Control D, it changes the number. Now we're working off a snatch number and not our clean number. Then obviously all of this would change because it's day 2, not day 1. So you're plugging in the correct movements for mobility, shoulder prehab, etc. And obviously the workout's going to change because I would need to change this to hang, snatch, and then change everything else that was in that workout. That's a general breakdown of our number sheet. Just like the master template, there's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of formulas. There's a lot of things that you can do with that as you're going through your time with us. Make sure you're asking those questions.